They say lakes remember everything. Not just the bodies that sink into them, not just the lies whispered over their surface, but the names of the people who stood at the edge, looked down into the dark water, and chose silence. In a village near Tosikchini, there is an old belief: if you hear a woman crying beneath the water, you must never answer her, because if she calls you by name, it means the lake has already decided you belong to it. By the time Haris returned to his late father's house near Tosikchini, the village had already started speaking about him in that careful, lowered tone people reserved for the unlucky. Not because his father died. Men died all the time in the village, on boats, in fields, on roads slick with rain, but because of how his father died. He had been found knee-deep in the shallows behind the house before dawn, standing upright in the water as if frozen. His eyes were open, his mouth was full of black lake mud. The old women said that meant he had seen her. Haris had no patience for any of that. He had spent nearly 20 years in Kuala Lumpur, building a life that felt far away from old beliefs, old wood houses, old prayers mixed with older fears. He was only back because there was no one else to sort through the estate. The house itself stood on stilts beside a narrow trail leading to the lake. It smelled of mildew, dried fish, and something faintly metallic, like rust in rainwater. His father had never remarried after Haris's mother disappeared when he was 8. The official story was that she had wandered off during a storm and drowned. No body had ever been found. That first night, Haris slept badly. The walls clicked and shifted with the cool air. Water slapped at the bank below. At some point after midnight, he awoke to the sound of crying. It was not close. It seemed to come from below the floorboards. He sat up, heart pounding, listening. A woman's voice, soft, choked, as if speaking through water. Haris. He froze. Then he laughed under his breath, annoyed at himself. Stress, jet lag, memory. The human brain could manufacture anything when left alone in darkness. He lay back down. The crying continued until dawn. The next morning, he asked Makja, the elderly neighbor who still lived 2 houses down, whether his father had left a radio somewhere beneath the house. She stared at him so hard he felt a child again. "Did it call you?" Haris forced a smile. "I heard something." Makja placed the tea she had brought him onto the kitchen table with trembling fingers. "If you hear it again, don't answer. Don't go near the bank at night, and whatever your father kept locked in the storeroom, don't open it." Naturally, that was the first thing Haris did after she left. The storeroom door was secured with a chain and an old padlock. Inside, he found bundles of dried herbs, cracked jars of cloudy water, yellowed newspaper clippings, and a notebook in his father's handwriting. The early pages were normal enough: repairs, debts, names, dates. Then the entries turned strange. "She is back. I saw her hair in the reeds. It is not my wife. It only wears her sorrow. I should have spoken that night. I should have told them where we put the child." Haris read that line 3 times. Where we put the child. His throat went dry. Beneath the notebook was a photograph warped by moisture. It showed his father as a younger man, standing beside 2 village elders and a boy Haris did not recognize. The boy could not have been older than 10, thin, barefoot, unsmiling. On the back of the photograph was written, Yusuf, The witness. That afternoon, Haris went into the village and asked around. Most pretended not to know the name. One old fisherman finally said Yusuf had vanished decades ago after a storm. "Same storm your mother disappeared in," the man added. That night, the crying returned earlier. Haris sat on the edge of his bed, gripping the notebook. He told himself he would not be frightened by village superstition. He was a grown man, an educated man. There had to be an explanation. Then the crying stopped. In the silence that followed, he heard wet footsteps circling beneath the house. Slow, dragging, deliberate. Then a woman's voice directly under him. "Haris, he lied to you." He stood before he realized he was moving. Every hair on his arms rose. The boards beneath his feet felt damp. "My son." That was his mother's voice. Not similar, not close, exact. He stumbled backward, hit the wall, nearly dropped the lamp. Something began scratching at the wooden pillar outside his room. Long nails, a patient, rhythmic scrape. He did not sleep at all. In daylight, courage returned in pieces. He searched the back of the property and found an old jetty half collapsed into the reeds. Beneath it, hidden by roots and black water, was a rusted metal box. Inside were a child's sandal, a strip of rotten blue shirt fabric, and a police report. It stated that during the storm 27 years ago, a village boy named Yusuf had gone missing after accusing several men, including Haris's father, of throwing something wrapped in cloth into the lake near midnight. The statement was dismissed as confusion brought on by shock. Yusuf disappeared the next evening. Haris went cold. He confronted Makja that afternoon. At first, she refused to speak, but when he showed her the report, she sat down heavily and covered her face. "There was a baby," she whispered. He went cold. "What baby?" "Your mother's." He laughed once, sharp and ugly. "I am her child." Makja looked at him with exhausted pity. "In those days," she continued, "some men believed things that should have stayed buried in the old world. Your father and the elders took the baby to the lake. Your mother followed them." The room seemed to tilt. "No, no," Haris said. "She tried to stop them. There was shouting. Yusuf saw. The men panicked. Your mother threatened to go to the police. Your father struck her." Makja swallowed. "She fell into the water." Haris stepped back like he'd been hit. "You said she wandered." "We all said that, because your father said if we spoke, the lake would take all our children." That evening, the sky darkened too quickly. Storm clouds rolled low over Tosikchini, turning the surface of the lake into a sheet of hammered iron. Haris packed his bag and decided to leave before sunset. He did not care about documents, land, money, any of it. At the front door, he found muddy footprints leading inside. Small footprints, child-sized. They ended at the storeroom. Inside, the jars on the shelves had shattered. The notebook lay on the floor, wet pages stuck together around one fresh line in shaky ink. "She does not want me. She wants the first son of the house." A wind moved through the room, though the windows were shut. Then he heard the crying again, not beneath the house now, but from the lake. He should have fled. Instead, as though pulled by a rope through the center of his chest, he walked toward the bank. Rain began to fall, thick, warm drops. Reeds bowed in the wind. The lake surface trembled. There, waist deep in the water, stood a woman in a white burial shroud. Her hair hung over her face in dripping black ropes. Her arms cradled something against her chest, something wrapped in cloth. "Haris," she said. He could not move. When the wind shifted, the hair slid aside. It was his mother's face, bloated, pale, eyes black with depthless water. He whispered, "I'm sorry." The thing in her arms moved. A child's hand emerged from the cloth, gray and slick, fingers too long. It gripped the shroud and slowly pulled itself higher. No cry, no breath, just a small head rising, skin stretched tight over its skull. Its eyes were open, and they were his. Haris stumbled back in horror. The woman smiled, and the skin at the corners of her mouth split. "He gave me your brother," she said, "so the lake asked for another son." The water around her began to churn. Shapes moved beneath the surface, human forms standing upright below the black water, their faces turned upward. His father among them, Yusuf, others. Hands broke the surface, hands reaching. Haris turned and ran, but the mud sucked at his feet. Something cold wrapped around his ankle and dragged him down to his knees. He screamed and clawed at roots. Behind him, the crying rose into laughter. He crawled onto the old Jeffy and looked back. The woman was gone. Only the bundle remained floating on the surface, slowly drifting toward him. Compelled by terror stronger than reason, he reached for it with a bamboo pole and pulled it closer. The cloth unwrapped. Inside was not a baby, it was a mirror. In the mirror, Haris saw himself standing on the jetty, and behind him, soaking wet, stood his father. Haris spun around, but there was no one there. Then the hands burst through the rotten wood from below. They seized his legs, his arms, his throat. The jetty collapsed. He plunged into water thick as oil. Under the surface, dozens of bodies stood suspended in the dark, eyes open. Among them was his father, mouth full of mud, gripping Haris's shoulders. And beside him floated Haris's mother, cradling not a baby, but a bundle of bones wrapped in infant cloth. His father's lips moved. The water carried the words into Haris's skull. "It wasn't your brother." Then his mother turned the bundle toward him. Inside the cloth was a tiny bracelet, silver and tarnished. Engraved on it was the name, Haris. At once, memory struck him, not as a thought, but as a sensation. Fever, a storm, hands lifting him, another child crying nearby, his mother screaming, his father choosing, saving one son, giving the other. The dead infant had not been his brother, it had been him. The Haris who grew up, who went to Kuala Lumpur, who built a life, was the surviving second child, born minutes later, raised under the dead child's name. His father had offered the firstborn to the lake, then let the village believe only one child had existed. The water filled Haris's lungs. Above him, the storm broke open. Below him, his mother smiled with endless sorrow. And as darkness entered him, he finally understood why the voice beneath the house had always sounded like grief. It had never been calling her son home. It had been calling the wrong son back. Some villages fear the dead because they return, but the truly cursed places are the ones where the dead never left. They stay in the water, in the walls, in the names passed down like heirlooms, waiting for the living to discover that their lives were built on a bargain someone else made in the dark. So if you ever pass a black lake in silence and hear someone crying beneath the surface, keep walking, because sometimes the thing calling you is not a ghost. Sometimes it is the truth.